Good morning, everybody. Today is 11th day in the month of April 2022. My name is Heritage Adisa, market analyst at Hot Forex. Quickly, as usual, check through the markets, find out what the overall sentiment is in the markets, if the opportunities, and then how we can take advantage of it. But please remember that this is just a communication material, and nothing in this communication contains or should be considered as investment advice or investment recommendation. Users acknowledge that investments in FX and CFD products is characterized by a certain degree of uncertainty, and that any investment of this nature involves a high level of risk for which users are solely responsible and liable. What we have this morning is a slight risk-off environment to start the day, more negative flow generally. What have been the main stories, have been the main issues? Now, number one, we've had worries about general slowdown in global growth amid rising inflation and central banks trying to tighten, trying to curb inflation. That's a negative for equity, negative for even global economy generally. Apart from that, we've also had rising virus cases in China, as well as lockdowns as well in China, Shanghai, and some other cities as well. That has also added to the negativity we have, on that front generally in the market. Apart from that, we've also still not had, clear headway, right, in the geopolitical tension between Russia and Ukraine. We talk about a 4-week deadline for Putin to, achieve some form of victory, right? So in that means that, over the next 4 weeks, we could really see escalation, right, on that particular front now. So that as well, all of those factors really point to the whole, or really cost the overall, risk off that we're seeing generally in the market. But despite all of this, the euro leads the FX majors. Over the weekend, we had presidential elections between the current president and challenger, where yes, President Macron led, or he's leading, or he won this first round, but there will still be a second round towards the end of the month. Now, and then yeah, he's expected to win the second round too as well. All of that has been a positive for the euro this morning. But apart from that, there's still talk that this race is a lot closer compared to when they had it, the last time. So there's that to pay attention to. But clearly, euro is leading the majors. Don't forget that the tensions in Russia and Ukraine is a negative for the euro. So I'm not really as excited about buying the euro as I would, buying something like the USD, but we'll get to that in a bit. Dollar is not far behind the euro, leading the majors as well, right? Benefiting from the risk of environment, number one, continued rise in bond yields, number two, as well as, or in line with the Federal Reserve trying to tighten policies really fast. That has been a positive for the euro. Japanese yen continues to lag amongst the major FX. Now, that hasn't really changed over the last couple of weeks. Reason being, number one, first of all, the BOJ are still sticking to the Adobe stance, which is causing a big divergence between, the yield curve between bond yields in Japan as well as other parts of the world, like in the US, for example. Rising bond yields in the US has been pressuring Japanese yen. Apart from that, we even had, overall rise in oil prices also being a negative for Japanese yen as a net importer of, energy. So there's that also pay attention to. But right now, JPY is lagging, despite the risk of is lagging because of these particular issues that we have on the ground. Commodity currencies are also pressured across board. Yes, risk of environment is not good for commodity currencies like the CAD, like the Aussie, like the Kiwi, that's the New Zealand dollar. But CAD is mostly, is feeling it the most because oil prices are also down, in today's session. Equities generally are down, right? Continuing from last week that we have so far. Oil prices are also lower today. UK oil gapped lower to start the day, right? But it's finding support around the key $100 per barrel, level so far. So there's also that to pay attention to. The bond market continues to fall, right? Tighter monetary policies, expectation for tighter monetary policies as well. The quantitative tightening has also been, a reason why yields has been jumping down. And we've been seeing bonds also fall on the back of that. The dollar index is little change, start the day because you have strength in the dollar itself and also strength in the biggest, component of the dollar index, which is the euro. So strength has seen the dollar index just remain in a range mostly for today. The upside in the VIX this morning has slowed, right? The VIX has also pulled back to almost close to open level. So all of this, yes, despite its risk of, it just puts a little bit of, be careful, be patient, environment or cloud over the market. But notwithstanding, we have the euro, leading the majors. The USA also following suit, and the CHF is also doing well. Wow, the Japanese yen is the most pressured. The card is weak. AUD is also pressured into this. I said it's a light economic calendar day, right? But for today, but in the week is going to be a busy one. We have central bank meetings here and there. We have key data points scheduled to be released as well. And ahead of key events like that, it's not really a surprise if market decides to just simmer out. So that's also that to pay attention to. But apart from that, you could look to pair strength versus weakness. Although the strength in the euro, I'm not really feeling it so much right now, because there's still so many moving parts there. But for the dollar index, the dollar itself, the strength in the USD is backed up by the risk of, backed up by even global expectation for slowdown in growth is a positive for the US dollar. So that's also there. Apart from that, you also expect faster tapering, faster pace of tapering by tapering and even tightening by the Federal Reserve. Also, that's a good thing for the US. So you can look at the USD against the likes of JPY, against the likes of CAD, against the likes of AUD. We'll talk about that in a bit. Although if you look at the USD against the commodity currencies, most of those pairs are capped by key levels. And against the JPY as well, those levels are stretched. So you also want to keep that at the back of your mind as a form of, caution, right? While we trade as well in today's session. You look across the equity space, for example, one thing I want to call attention to is despite the fact that we had, that downside in session, it's really been a messy front. This is the GR40, one of the equities on the European side, really been messy over the last couple of days, and today's session is no different. So that just tells you, that calls for a little bit more caution. But generally, you look at the JPN, for example, down on the day, although really struggling to break below or create fresh lows for the day. You look at the likes of AUS, 200, also on the equity side generally, still showing that overall, choppy moves right now. You cross over to the US side. Yes, overly down in today's session, right? Pressured in today's session down about 0.72%, but you can see that we are struggling at this key support level going back to the lows of 6th of April. That's like Wednesday last week, also on Thursday. So all of that just says, be a little bit more careful, cautious, while you're going into the risk that we have currently. You look at the US 30 as well. Yes, down on the session, but not by so much. Look at the swing that we've had so far in today's session hasn't really given us so much to work with. And you look at the VIX. The VIX also doesn't really help because we also have that swing. And then you look at where we're trading right now. We are capped by Friday's gains. You look at where we stopped at Friday, and we've not really been able to break above this. So despite the risk of that we're seeing currently, I'm being a little bit more cautious, trying to just jump into anything I see right now. But clearly, is what we have, is what we can see, and it's what we're holding on to right now. Oil prices are down on today, right? Not by a large margin, considering the fact that we are still, within, Friday's ranges, Thursday's ranges. Yes, we're back to test the whole 50, 100, and 200 moving average that I have on this particular chart, but still, talking about the tensions, the sanctions, talking about escalations that could go on over the next 4 weeks, that is a positive for oil prices. So we also have to also pay that or put that in our minds, our back of our minds while we trade, while we pay attention to all of this. For the UK oil, key one because we failed to keep below, this $100 per barrel level. So clearly this has been a source of support over the last couple of sessions, and we could see it really push higher. But the fact that we're even within the Friday's ranges, within the 50 and 100, moving averages here, it just says caution, 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 and really spells that out, generally. The dollar index, another interesting one to look out for, and we've seen that we're really back at almost open levels, just neck chain about 0.02%, really there, nothing much. Swings high, swings lows, nothing really major or tangible looking up there. We could have looked at the dollar, looking at the dollar in terms of the strength versus weakness against the likes of AUD, against the likes of NZD or CAD. But you look at even how we're trading on those particular pairs. USD CAD, this is it. Despite the initial weakness we had in oil prices, we've not really gone so much, unable to break above Friday's highs, above Thursday's highs as well. And that just says, I mean, how about we just more patient? It's just a Monday, the market is just getting started. We have a load of data releases, central bank meetings during this week, and it's even a short trading week as well. Heading into Friday, we have Good Friday holiday. So all of those factors just says, how about you just a little bit more patient? Doesn't mean that we can have the dollar strengthen against them. It just says that you have to also have strong conviction before you go into any trades like that. You look at the dollar against AUD, for example, that's AUD USD, right? Also a similar story there, unable to break below, the earlier low we created in Asian session, as well as even Friday's lows. So all of that has just been, a very patient one for me, or it's giving me a little bit more patience. We look at even the same thing against, was the last one against We talk about AUD, remain NZD. So NZD USD, another similar story there, unable to really just continue that push lower. USD is interesting. We could look out for this. As a matter of fact, it's really kept being up over the last couple of sessions after the range we had, last week really pushed higher. And so far in today's session, we've broken above this level. Look at it now, and then we are retesting that level. Going back a bit, that level has been interesting, going back to the highs. Let's just see. This is also the high going back to, I think, 28th, late March, thereabout. That could be interesting, but considering how stretched this is, I'm really, really reluctant trying to buy at levels like that. I'd like to see maybe pull back, preferably something towards yesterday's highs. Might not be in today's session, might be. Apart from that, we've already had so much, going for us already in today's session, over 100, almost 150 pips already up already. That's way above the ATR of 99 pips. So that just says, be careful trying to buy this high. If you can get rotation back towards Friday's highs, very close to this round number around 124.5, that would be better for me in terms of looking for the upside on this particular pair. But that said, one pair I want to also touch before we head out, one pair I want to also touch is Euro versus AUD. Now, like I said earlier, yes, there's strength in Euro this morning, no doubt. But the reasons why we have strength, yeah, we talk about the elections. That really isn't, that's so solid, considering the fact that there's still another one and the tie is really close. That said, there's tension still building up in Europe. We had comments from one of Chinese officials saying, trying to just blame US for their role in this. So there's also that, still building up, hasn't really cleared out. And with Putin having or setting for himself a 4-week deadline to achieve some form of victory in Ukraine, that obviously says that it could really get worse. Now that tells me that, you see, the weakness that we have in the Euro generally on the back of that, is still something I'm still very much interested in. But in today's session, though, I might not be looking to take it right now in today's session, but clearly something I have my eyes on and I still want to pay attention to it, going forward, particularly against the AUD. Now you look at this particular pair, right? Attention got called to this earlier, in today's session, but just to quickly look at this, just clean this up a bit. All right, now where we are trading right now, you look at the lows, this overhead, trend line that we have right now, right? The rally over the last couple of days has been nice, good. But if we can really, really retest this level, considering the fact that we still have so much to worry about, very close to this overall 1.447 level, anything back to this region, if we have commodity currency start to rise again, you talk about the likes of NZD card, generally AUD, generally start to pick up again, sentiment picking up better, that would really be one I'm paying attention to. And I like to see this for further downside on this particular pair with more and more room to downside target levels around this, as well as even the lows going back here. Apart from this, you can also look out for the Euro against the CAD, as well as the NZD as well. But right now, I'm not really excited about jumping in right now because sentiment does not allow for it, but clearly is something that I'm paying attention to and I like to see even going into the week as well. But that said, we're going to leave it at that. You look at the calendar, for example, today is really a light one. I mean, there's barely anything on the calendar in today's session. Yes, in the week ahead, there's still a load, of key points to be released. But apart from that, in today's session, nothing much. It's a Monday, mixed environment, but convictions are not so high starting the session. So we're going to leave that for now. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask, and we'll always do our best to help. Thank you. Do enjoy the rest of your trading session. Bye for now.